Welcome from IAC and Master Connection Associates to our webinar today, looking at probing and qualifying. For our new joiners, you will notice that during this session we will put you all on mute, and we do that purely because we record the session so we can send it to you afterwards. But we do encourage you to use your chat boxes at the bottom of your screens. And Kim will take you through it throughout the session. She may well open the chat boxes depending on numbers, but we are quite a large group today. As I said, we do record it, so I will send you all the recording afterwards, but it's along with all our webinars, it's on our IAC webinar on demand page on our website and on our YouTube channel. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Kimberly Pung from Master Connections Associates. Thanks, Kim.
All right, great, Kate. Let me just quickly mute everyone, and then I love your participation, though. Love your questions, love your suggestions, ideas. So we'll give a chance for people to come off mute and share those things as well. And the chat feature, as Kate said, is a great way to share questions. There'll be a couple times throughout our session that I'm going to ask you to put things into the chat or to come off mute and share, just so we can create a little dialogue and get you engaged in our time together here. But we're talking about today is what matters most. And that is what matters most to our clients and our customers. So in that initial sales call or in an inquiry call that we're handling, how critical it is for us to be asking the right questions, not only to qualify the business, to make sure it's actually business that we want or that it's going to be good for our venue, but also to really understand our customers' needs and what's important to them. So our key topics for today is to talk about that first, how to ask the right questions. What kind of questions do we ask? How do we lead that conversation in a really consultative way that encourages our clients to share information? A lot of feedback we get, of course, from salespeople is nobody wants to talk. They just want rates and availability. And I said, yeah, maybe, but also they want a good and successful event. And they want a good and successful program. And so if they get a salesperson on the line who actually is genuinely interested in having a conversation, they will open up. But it's up to us to be leading that conversation, asking the right questions, and getting our clients to a place where they are able to share what they want to do. But that also comes with listening effectively. So we'll touch a little bit on that. And then how to set our conference center and venue apart in the RFP process, because that's a tricky part of the inquiry, of probing, of qualifying, is not always having that opportunity to have that phone conversation, to engage with them, either email, to ask those questions. So we'll figure out how to navigate that process and still get the information that we need to be successful. And then one other final little great tip I want to share with you at the end of our session is an important best practice that we put in place at MCA, and that is what we call the verification process. So bridging that gap between that initial call, that inquiry, and the next step of proposal, site visits, presentation, and how do we create a bridge of communication during that time so we can remain responsive to our customers, but also very customized in what we are creating for them. So we do a lot of focus groups. We do a lot of interviews. In fact, our managing partner, Cindy Novotny, just did hundreds of interviews with planners in the last month. And among many other things that they were telling us with trends that they're seeing in meetings and trends that they're seeing in events, they had quite a bit to say about us and about us as salespeople, and specifically around the lack of personalization in the proposals and the pitches that they're getting. And so what we're hearing from them is what they shared with us is they want more information. They want more than just the meeting specs. They want more than just the diagrams and the capacities and those types of square footage and square meters. They want to understand how we're going to be able to meet their unique needs of that event, that program, that meeting. And so they're finding that a lot of the details in the proposals are not related at all to what was discovered in a probing process or during that discovery phase, that even though needs were uncovered, they weren't really reflected in the proposal, and that rarely are those proposals customized to the group. Now, I'm sure of the 23 of you or so I have on here today, that's not the case for you, but I'm just sharing some feedback that we get from planners, because I think it is important for us to consider, especially in this, how busy we become. It gets very easy to become transactional. It gets very easy to get the lead, shoot out the proposal without really giving thought to what's important to this client, how do I differentiate ourselves, how do I differentiate our venue, how do I win this business? And the best way to win that business is not just responsiveness, but personalization. And so what they're saying is there's just too much generic information or too much information about the destination that doesn't really address our needs. In fact, one specific quote from one of our interviews said, oh, a little too quick. I'm trying to move my own picture out of the way. RFP responses appear to be from templates that imply little or no research has been conducted, and the salesperson has done nothing to distinguish the hotel or destination. We want to be different than that. We want to be different than that. One, because we want to be great sellers. We want to be trusted advisors. We want to build our credibility as a resource and as somebody who's going to come alongside our customers and help them plan the most dynamic and effective meetings and events. And because of the expertise that we have through IAC and knowing and the industry as being leaders in creating very dynamic meetings, we want to set ourselves apart. And the best way to set ourselves apart is to have great ideas and proposals, because great ideas and proposals are going to help them, right, increase their attendance, get more people at the event and the meeting, and that is going to be the ROI for them. And so that means we have to start at the beginning. You know, we can't just, oh, I'm going a little too quick today, so sorry. You have to start at the beginning. That effective probing and qualifying is essential to our success in sales. I hear oftentimes from salespeople, oh, I just couldn't close the business. I got to the end and it just all fell apart. I said, it didn't fall apart there. It did not fall apart there. It fell apart like way up here. So way back on the upper right part of this cycle, that's where it started to fall apart. Our ability to close starts at hello. Our ability to close starts at our ability to ask the right questions, uncover their needs, find out their hot buttons, find out what's keeping them up at night, find out how we can help get that ROI for them on their meetings and events. And by digging in as a consultant would and getting to know their business and their programs and events. And so our ability to close, our ability to overcome objections, our ability to put the right proposal together, our ability to have a good site visit, all hinges on whether or not we've done a good job of asking the right questions that's going to uncover that specific client's needs. And so I want to ask first, what are some of your challenges when it comes to not just probing and qualifying, but then actually being able to put together those customized proposals? So give me some sense as to what makes it hard to get the probing done, to ask the right questions. What's hard for you when it comes to those specific things? And I'll have you put those in the chat, and then I will kind of circle back to those as we get through our time together so that we can do that together. But what's important in the probing and qualifying is that we're taking time to build rapport. We're not rushing too quickly through the process. We're not rushing too quickly with just getting dates, rates, and space, but really taking time to get to know them, to show interest in them, to be conversational, and to cover what we call the implied needs. So that's those hot buttons, those things in the end that are going to determine success for them, things in the end that are going to be the differentiators of whether or not this program is going to work, or even if we're going to get to convert and book this business. And so we have to go beyond just dates, rates, and space, even if our clients are trying to keep us there. As I would imagine, often you hear from people, oh, just give me the rates and availability. Can you just tell me what the availability is? I don't have time for this. It's you taking the time to just slow the process down a bit and say, I would be happy to share that with you. I will absolutely talk. We'll look at the availability together. We'll look at some rates. But in order to do that, I need to ask you some questions. I need to understand a little bit what you're looking for. And so I can make sure we put you into the right spot, the right space, and at the right time. So you take control by saying, can I ask you a few questions so that we can get to the opportunity of delivering and giving you that availability? So most importantly, we take control that way, and we also never sell right away at the first part of the call. We never sell until we know what's important to them. We never sell until we've uncovered their specific needs, because it's going to be much easier for us to sell them something they want than something we think that they want. And let's be honest, we make a lot of assumptions. We hear association, we hear pharmaceutical, we hear insurance, and we think, oh, this is what they need, this is what they need, this is important to them. Every client is different. And every client needs different things at different times. And so we can't make that assumption about anything. We want to dig in with each client, with each pharmaceutical company, with each insurance company, with each association, so that we understand uniquely what that association, what that company, what their problems are, and not just the problems of that company in the meeting, but the planner, what's motivating them, what's important to them, how we can come alongside to them, because so many of the things that differentiate us as IAC have to do with ease of planning for not just the end users and the attendees, but for the people planning and organizing the event and the resources and the dedicated planners that we can give to them in that process. So effectively qualifying and probing allows us to offer and create more customized solutions, which is going to, in the end, close more business for us. And so I mentioned the term implied needs a few moments ago, and let me explain what I mean by that. And so we use this analogy of an iceberg, and if you've been to any of the MC training before, you've probably seen us. Sometimes we draw this ridiculous looking iceberg on a flip chart. So I have a nice image here that helps you give a visual of what I'm talking about. So as you know, what's unique about an iceberg is only 10% is showing above the water and the rest is lurking below, right? And that's why the captain of the Titanic was unbothered and unworried about all the little tiny icebergs that were floating around about him in the Atlantic because they seemed small and that was a big ship and there'd be no problem. But we know, big problem under the water. And so it was the ice under the water that ended up sinking the Titanic. I will say the same for you. This little whole big piece under the water here is what's going to sink you. If we don't understand what those implied needs are, we will be sunk. We will maybe get the business, but we'll be able to be successful with the business and giving them events. So the explicit needs are the just on the surface. They have they need a space for a meeting. Maybe they need guest rooms as well. They have certain dates they're looking for. They have this many people coming. But let's be honest, every single conference center, venue, hotel in our ComSet and really in the world can meet those meetings, those events, those qualifications. I can give you a space for a meeting. I can give you these dates. I can accommodate that many people. But will it be the atmosphere you want? Will it be the environment that you want? Will it have the dedicated, conference tables? Will it have high back leather chairs? Will it give me the ambiance I'm looking for from my very high-end executive board meeting or my large association that I have coming? So we know that our clients have preferences, have expectations, have a vision for what that meeting should be. They don't want it just anywhere. They want it in a place that's going to meet those needs. So that is what's under the surface. Yes, they need space for 300. They need a board room for 10 at this date, at this time, but they also want it to be prestigious or accessible, or they want the space to be flexible, or they want the meeting to flow efficiently. Or they need to grow their business. They need to impress clients. They need to continue to increase their own market share. And so this meeting that they're having is going to help them do that with exposure and really making sure that this goes well. So they have a lot of things happening for them underneath the surface that if we don't tap into, we will never be able to fully meet their needs, much less exceed their expectations, and be able to differentiate why they should choose us over the other venues and conference centers and hotels that they may be looking at. So we need to consider what's underneath the surface in order to be successful so that we can indeed not only win the business, but have a very successful event along the way. And so think of that iceberg as you think about your initial inquiry calls, your initial sales calls, that you got to keep digging underneath the surface in order to be successful. And so I'm going to introduce you today to the probing process, which is a method to help us dig in, to help us go underneath the water and into that big iceberg to find out what specifically our clients and customers and planners are looking for. And so there's 4 distinct phases or steps of the probing process that I'm going to walk through. The first is the positive opening, where we have a warm greeting and we acknowledge them, build rapport. Then we start by asking open-ended questions, so broad probing questions that help us understand what's important to them. I think I have somebody coming in, so let me just open the room for them. There we go. So those broad probing questions, and then we focus in with more follow-up questions, and then we transition to selling. And we created this image for the probing process like a funnel very intentionally. Because if you think at the beginning of initial sales call or an inquiry call that we're taking, there's a very big gap in our understanding of what the client's needs are. And there's a very big gap in the client's understanding of what we can do for them. And so if you see on the left side of the funnel is the customer's needs, on the right side of the funnel is what we can do for them, our features, what we're offering to sell. At the beginning, big gap. Well, we have a tendency to fill that gap too quickly with what we can do for them. We have this amazing garment center. We have these great tables. We have these, continuous breaks. We have all these things. We start filling that funnel in with what we have before we understand the gap, before we understand what is keeping them up at night and what is important about this event. So we have to hold back on our selling until we first narrow that gap down by understanding what their specific needs are. And so we do so by following this methodology with a probing process that creates a very conversational, very organic, very natural conversation to uncover their needs. Because there's nothing worse than that salesperson who clearly has like a list of questions in front of them and is just sort of checking the box. What's important to you? What's your budget? What's this? What's that? It takes a lot of tact in order to really think of how to ask these questions in a way that doesn't feel like the client's being interrogated, but also creates a very natural and organic conversation. So I'm going to walk us through each of these elements of the probing process so that we can see how we can layer in our questions in a way that's natural, in a way that's authentic, in a way that's genuine, that gets us to narrow that gap so that by the time we finish that initial conversation, we feel pretty comfortable that we know what those needs are. And then we can transition to start selling and telling them how we can meet those needs with our features. So that is the model. And let me just take you through the elements of that. So we first start with a positive opening. And this is where we want to have a warm and genuine greeting. We want to show genuine interest in them. We want to have enthusiasm in our voice. So if it's an inquiry call, we want to sound like this is the first call we've taken of the day, that we're not too busy to talk to them, because sometimes our customers just want answers fast because they feel like they're interrupting us. So we never want them to feel like that. We want them to feel like we're ready and we're excited. Excited to get this business from them and excited to learn more. And the same would be on initial sales call. So if this is somebody that we prospected, that we have gotten an initial call, phone appointment to talk to and find out cover their needs, then we want to acknowledge, any previous conversations we've had, acknowledge what we know about them and their organization through some maybe research that we've done, and just build that rapport right away with a little small talk, and just creating that stronger relationship and developing that rapport. Because if we jumped right into asking the questions, it would seem like an interrogation. But if we warm them up a little bit and be friendly and get to know them, then I feel like they're going to be much more open to the questions that we have to ask. Now, there's a fine line with that because they can be impatient too, and they're busy and they have things to do. So we don't want to spend 15 minutes just chit-chatting, but just enough to understand who they are, understand what their company is, where they're calling from, what does their organization do, just those few things that help us really understand a little bit who we're talking to, which will also, I think, help us to understand how to ask the right questions and how to dig in a little bit more based on the things that they're showing us. So we want to show a lot of energy, a lot of positive attitude, enthusiasm, that we look the part if we're on a team or a Zoom call, or we happen to be meeting in person for that initial sales appointment, that we look the part. All of that is creating a certain image, professional image of who we are, what we represent, and our genuine interest in them. So that's the positive opening. Pretty easy, that we start to create that positive experience for them. Then we would start transitioning into asking what we call the broad probing questions. And these are the big picture questions that are open-ended, right? So we're trying to get the customer to open up, to share their plans, to share their ideas, to share their vision for what they're looking for. And by open-ended, I mean they cannot be answered in yes or no. And so a lot of us are probably asking a lot of questions, but are we actually asking them in an open-ended fashion that's going to get the customer to explore more? So for example, if I said, do you need meeting space? Yes. Where does that conversation go? But if I turn that around and say, can you tell me a little bit about what you're planning for the meeting and the type of space you're going to need? Obviously, they need meeting space or they would have called us. And so just switching how we ask that question is going to help us get more information from them. So we're the ones taking charge of the conversation, making it conversational by knowing the questions to ask that are going to generate that conversation that we're looking for. So for example, it is, tell me what you have planned for the program, or what brought our hotel, our conference center, our venue to mind. What is most important to you when you're planning this particular meeting or event? What is your budget? Where have you had this meeting in the past? In the past, what didn't go so well, perhaps, that you'd like to avoid, or maybe what did go well? What we want to start to understand is, what are their expectations for this. If this is a meeting they have regularly and they've had other places, we can't be afraid to ask, where were you? And did you like it? And if you did, what did you like about it? Because we want to be able to replicate the things that they liked or even do better than that. And if things went wrong, we want to be able to show them that we can manage that. We can handle that effectively. So what keeps you going back if they are using another venue at this point? What keeps you going back if they're looking at other venues? Asking sometimes those hard questions. But those hard questions are going to get us great answers. And I think the customer actually appreciates that we understand that they have options. We understand that they are possibly looking at other venues and that we respect the fact that they have options and respect the fact that they have choices to make. And so by asking them, who else are you looking at? Why do you keep going back there? They're willing to share because it's important to them to have a successful event. So if we ask the right questions, we will get good answers. I think the frustration that many of our customers have is salespeople aren't asking great questions and aren't digging in and not really showing a lot of interest in the leads that our clients are bringing us. And so when that's the case, then they tend to pull back and say, I just want to age racing space. I'll figure this out myself. I'll call somebody else. I'll look online. I'll have my own opinion. They don't want to engage because they feel like we're not engaged. But when we get engaged, they will engage too. Because I truly believe they want to have a successful event. They want to have a successful program, whether it's a PA, an executive assistant, a meeting planner, somebody off the street planning events for the first time. They want to be successful at that. And we have a lot of expertise that can help them to be successful at that. So I'd like to ask you now to share with us what are some of the good, broad probing questions, open-ended questions that you have perhaps used in the past that really open up conversation and start to uncover your customers' needs. Oh, I did too fast. I'm trying to find there. My chat keeps closing. So go ahead and put those in the chat or just come off mute. Anyone, come off mute and share with us. In fact, I might just call on a couple people here nobody has their camera on anymore. Everyone's hiding behind. I'm just the only one here. So let's see who was on at the beginning. Cindy, you seemed quite nice and friendly. Cindy, why don't you come off mute quickly and just give us, oh, you put right in the chat there. How can we help you accomplish your meeting mission? So I'll still have you come off mute. And Cindy, and share with us, when you ask that question, how can we help you accomplish your meeting mission? What do you hope to uncover from the customer? Cindy McWade there at Chauncey. What do you hope to uncover when you ask them, how can we, oh, it's moving too fast now. How can we help you accomplish your meeting mission? There. Maybe she can't hear us. All right, let me just share then a couple others that are popping up. So let's see here. We have, JJ says, what is your vision for the event? Sarah says, what are your goals for the meeting? We shared Cindy's already. JJ also add, tell me about the flow. What is the deal breaker or hot button? Christine adds, what is the highlight of this event? Oh, unmute you. Oh gosh.
Sorry, I unmuted. Hi, it's Cindy. Can you hear me?
I hear you now, dear. Yes, I'm so sorry. I have all the rules and then I didn't let you get back on. So go ahead and tell us now that you've finally been able to share your voice.
Actually, sometimes I know a lot of what our property Chauncey does well, and I'm hoping that one of those items is part of that solution. Sometimes it's about the audiovisual and the virtual component that they're bringing some folks in, and I'm able then to speak to, our virtual owls and our dedicated technicians that work here in AV for Chauncey, not as an outside representative. How important is food? Sometimes, you want to feed them because they're working hard, and we have a copper skillet champion chef here at Chauncey, which is something that we have to educate them about. What does that mean? But I think sometimes folks think conference center, the food will probably be okay, but we actually can stand on that very well. And it's just bringing that to the surface, to the conversation. Yeah.
Right. And maybe even more importantly, if they bring up things that you think, ooh, that's going to be hard for us, right? I have to figure out then how I can position that, how I can spin it so that I can show them we can meet some of those needs that maybe are a little out of the box or maybe isn't a strength of our particular venue as well. So thank you, Cindy, for coming off mute. Marilee said, can you tell me about your meeting plans? What made this event successful in the past? All helping us to understand what success looks like for them. What is the highlight of the event? What's most important to you? Any questions like that are going to help us determine what success looks like so that we can then put together a proposal and a program that's going to meet and exceed those expectations. Samantha says, what's the most important aspect of your meeting? JJ says, again, I have 5 teammates with me, so that feedback is from the whole team. All right, that's awesome. Thank you, JJ. How did you hear about us? Is a great question. Katie says, what is the most important aspect of your meeting that you want or wish to see that will make it success? Is this the first time you've had the meeting, or have you held the meeting in the past? Have you been to our property before? All great questions. And so I really feel for the most part, that most salespeople are actually pretty good at these questions. We know we've been trained, or we've had enough experience at this point to know that we need to ask those big questions like, what is most important to you? And answer those questions. So what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you now be the customer. And let's just take Samantha's question here. It's a pretty basic one, generic one here. I think we can all answer. I'm putting Samantha's question, what is the most important aspect of your meeting, back into the chat? And I want you to answer that as if you were the customer. So if you were planning a meeting, what would you say is the most important aspect of your meeting? Putting that back in the chat. And I want you all, or whoever can, to chat in your response as to what's the most important aspect of the meeting. And we will keep going. So let's hear from you as to what. So JJ says, or JJ and team, the ROI for holding my dance event. Samantha says smooth audio visual. Cindy says quick support if we need AV assistant. So some key things there for them. All right, we'll hear from a couple more. A lot of AV support today as far as what people are looking for. Patty says the guest experience. All right, so those are some good ones. You can keep putting more in, and we can just get to those as we go. Cindy added flexible meeting space. JJ said growing attendance numbers and if there's room to grow. So we get some great information when we ask those big questions like what's most important to you. And if we were honest, and what I observe is we do a lot of shop calls, I do a lot of coaching with salespeople. Once we ask that question, like what's most important to you, and we get an answer like AV support or quick support, we need AV assistance or smooth AV usage, we jump right into saying, oh, we have the most amazing AV. We own all of our equipment. It's all on site. We have a tech as part of our team. You're going to have 24-hour support on your AV. We'll do all the testing. We'll do this. We have all the latest technology. We jump right into selling. And quite honestly, let me just ask JJ and team. Let's see, did JJ and team have that? No, JJ and team. So Samantha, if you can come off mute for a second. And I'm going to just have a quick little dialogue with you.
Hello.
So I said, what's the most important aspect of your meeting? And you said smooth audio visual usage. And my next question to you, Samantha, is what does that mean? Can you share with me more what you mean by smooth audio visual usage?
Yeah, I would say for a lot of people doing a audiovisual test run the day before or maybe before the meeting, having that available as well as kind of giving them the full rundown of what exactly the AV is, what adapters and things that they will either need to bring themselves or that we have on site, and just kind of like a clear window of what exactly we are providing verbatim.
Okay, excellent. And so they're looking for the test run, they're looking for having a final rundown, they're looking for the right adapters. Excellent, thank you so much. Cindy, you also said support. So let me ask you, tell me a little bit more about the support you're looking for to support your AV needs during the meeting.
I think sometimes we come across clients that have had a challenge at another facility. Either they are not AV literate, or someone brought a Mac computer and they need an adapter. They just want to know, can we get quick assistance? So from the client perspective, it's letting them know that we share text cell phone numbers for ease of instantly asking, I need help, please come to our Rosedale room. The power went out, or we need to switch presentations. And I think that gives them a level of confidence, because sometimes I don't think that they know what the issue might be, but they just want to know that we're ready to assist.
Excellent. All right. Thank you so much. Marilee, I'm going to ask you because you also said AV. So if you could come off mute, Marilee, quickly. And if I asked you the question, what's most important to your meeting, and you said AV support, I would follow up and say, Marilee, can you share with me a little bit more about what your expectations are around AV support?
We have, if when you work with particularly somebody who is planning meetings on a consistent basis, they understand that the AV support for the meeting is key. I mean, they're coming to communicate in some kind of learning environment, workshop, information that's key to their company and to their attendees. So they're looking for technology that is consistent and reliable. They're looking for equipment that in some cases has high resolutions, for instance, medical groups many times, and they are looking for someone who is going to be dedicated at their meeting to be able to ensure that they have a seamless event.
Okay, so thank you to the three of you, Sam and Cindy and Marilee. And so I want you to notice here, each one of them said AV, but when you dig in a little bit, and some of them were positioning from their own personal expectations or what clients would say, but they said different things. Sam said, I want to do a test run. I want to make sure we have a final rundown. I want to be clear of what's happening. I want a clear window of understanding what's happening. Cindy said, we've had challenges before that we've not had people that were literate with AV, and so I'm concerned that we're going to have that problem again. Marilee says, I want, to have reliable tech. We need high resolution equipment because we have our presentations are important to us, and it needs to be seamless. So notice how each one started with AV, but each one had a little bit different nuance as to what they're looking for in AV. So if we just ask the big question and say, what are you looking for? And they say AV, and then we start selling right away, like, oh, we have this, we can have the confidence that we share the text, that we share cell phone numbers, we're going to be there, we have dedicated person on site. We may be selling something that isn't exactly meeting specifically what they're looking for. So we got to ask what I call the next best question. So we start with the big questions, like what's most important to your meeting. They share smooth audio visual, quick support if we need AV assistance, AV support, but then we don't stop there. We say what I did. Tell me more about that. Tell me what you mean by smooth audio visual. Can you share with me your expectations for support or what's worked well for you in the past when it came to AV support? I want to ask what we call that focus probing question that's going to really start to get in under the surface of that water, right, the iceberg, and uncover challenges, uncover expectations, uncover needs, so that we can make sure that we're positioning how we can fulfill that AV support in a way that directly relates to their specific needs. And for example, Cindy was gracious enough to share, like, we've actually had a challenge somewhere else. So now it's a really great opportunity for you to differentiate your property, your venue, your AV team, your technology, based on what their experience was in the last place. But we want to hear what it was. What was the challenge? What was hard? And then we listen. And then when we're positioning our pitch, our proposal of our AV team to them, then we can position it to the expectations they had and what was wrong. So we start the probing process, or we start the questions with the big, broad, tell me about what was important, what is going to work for you, all the ones you had here. How did you hear about us? What's important in this meeting? Is this the first time you've had it? Where have you been before? Starts the conversation, but it doesn't end there. We got to dig in with these focus probing questions to uncover those implied needs, to uncover the real issues, the things that are specific to them around what they're doing. So while the broad probes can be planned, like you can take this whole list, in fact, I'm happy to share it, the whole list of whatever we put in the chat, you can kind of keep a little cheat sheet of good questions to ask because they can kind of be the same each time, right? What's most important to you? How did you hear about us? What are you planning for your meeting or event? They can be the same. It's the focus probing questions that are going to have to be tailored to what the customer has shared with you. But it doesn't mean it's complicated. It's just, tell me more about that. Help me understand what you mean by the challenge that you had last time. Please share with me, or can you elaborate about what the specific challenges were? Can you be more specific when you say Location, can you be more specific when you say you want great service? Because great service means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Can you elaborate on what you're looking for specifically in a location or a destination? So that when I start to sell, I don't sell the wrong thing. Because location is a prime example. I ask, what's most important to you? And they say location. And then I immediately start selling my location. And then find out I'm in a very remote part. I'm far from the city. I have this, serene and wonderful, atmosphere that I'm looking for. And that's not what they're looking for. They want something close. They want to have quick access to the airport. They want to get people downtown. Maybe they have meetings, whatever it is. So I can't just sell what I have, assuming that's what they're looking for. I got to sell what they want. And if they want city and I'm really far, I got to figure out how to spin that so that I can show them, oh, it's going to be great to have a little distance, but we can get you into the city when you need to do that. So making sure that we're fitting in the right way by asking those focus probing questions. So start with the broad probes, all the what, when, how, what. Then dig in. Don't just take that surface answer, but say, tell me more about that. Can you expand more on the dinner? What were you expecting for your dinner? Because we tend to go through a lot of specs. We want to have 2 days of meetings. We're having a general session, then 3 breakouts in the afternoon. The next day, we're going to have more of a trade show exposition that we're going to do. I want to do breakfast and lunch both days. I want to have a dinner. And we go, great. I write it all down and I say, I'll put a proposal together. Well, what kind of dinner are they having? Is it a formal dinner? Is it an awards dinner? Is it casual fun, like barbecue kind of dinner? If I don't dig in and say, well, tell me more about your dinner. What did you have planned? I'm going to miss a lot of opportunities to make sure I'm presenting and pitching the right thing to them. So don't be afraid to ask what I call that next best question, which is the focus probe, to help us understand. But then we have to listen. It's not just about asking the question. We have to listen. We have to take notes. We have to, listen to what they're saying and then use that to help guide us in asking more questions. This probing and qualifying is not just about advancing the sale. It's about building relationships. It's about building trust. It's about building credibility. It's about showing that we can have this mutually beneficial relationship and partnership with them because I understand who you are, I understand what you need, and you can see that mutual benefit from me as well. So it's listening, it's taking notes, it's using their words to say, tell me more about what you mean when you say, that you want support for your AV. Like expand more on what you're talking about when it comes to that. So really being able to listen, genuinely listen to what our clients are saying, not just waiting to talk next. That's generally what we're doing, but really listening to what they're saying, because that's going to help us to get in to those implied needs, digging deeper, asking those questions. And this doesn't need to take 20 minutes. I've observed and coached many a shop call where the inquiry lasted 12 minutes, but in 12 minutes, they got so much information because they asked the right questions. And sometimes it's only 1 or 2 big questions that you ask, and then a couple of follow-up, and you can get a pretty good sense of what those big hot buttons are that are going to allow you to position your hotel or conference center and hotel in a much better way than before. Now, as we're getting our way down this funnel, right, we're narrowing that gap, we're asking those focus probing questions, we're starting to understand what's important. We're getting to a point now where like, I have enough information, I think I can start telling them how we can meet their needs. But I'm not doing that before now. Because oftentimes what I see people doing is they ask a question and they sell. They ask a question and then they sell. They ask a question and sell. So what's most important to you? AV. Well, let me tell you about the most amazing AV. And then we sell AV. Okay, can you tell me now, what did you have planned for food? And then they tell us what they want for food. And then we start to sell menus. And we start to sell our breaks and everything. And then we go back and ask them again and go, can you tell me a little bit more now about the flow of the meeting? And then they tell us what they want for the meeting. And then we start selling the flow of the meeting. It becomes very disjuncted. It becomes hard for the customer to follow along, and it breaks up the conversation. So if we take the time just up front to ask all the questions at once, we get that information, we create conversation, we can follow up on what they've shared. It's going to allow us to say, great, now that you shared this with me, I'd love to tell you a little bit about how our conference center can meet those needs. Or do you have time for me now to share a little bit about what we think we can do for you to create this really successful program? So the finalizing probe is kind of rhetorical in nature. It's almost like we're asking permission in a way to move forward, but also checking in. Like, is there anything else I should know before I share with you how I think our venue can meet your needs or what we can offer for this particular meeting? So that finalizing probe is kind of checking in. Is there anything else? As well as, do you have some time right now for me to just share a little bit about the hotel and the conference center venue, whatever the case is. And so in that case, then that would transition us to selling, which is a whole nother webinar. In fact, if you'd like to go back, we did a presenting solutions and a great webinar on presenting back in May, I think it was. So Kate had mentioned earlier, you can access those through IAC Online. That would be the next step, is now I take the time to position my ideas, my suggestions, my recommendations. I talk about our AV, I talk about our meetings, I talk about our breaks, I talk about our planners. I do all of that after I have initially done all of that probing. So for success, right, we have to understand that gap. We have to know the criteria of making the decision. We have to know what success is going to look like. So before we start to sell, we want to make sure we have all those details in place so that we can be successful in what we're selling. And what you're going to learn then, if you do go back and listen to that webinar from May, is we're not just going to dump all of our features in on them. We're going to selectively talk about the things that were most important to them. So if AV was most important, I'm going to start with AV. And then I'll get to food and beverage. And then maybe I'll get to meeting setup or the guest rooms. Whatever those 2 or 3 things that were most important is what I'm going to focus on that initial call, that inquiry, so I can keep bringing them in, keep getting that interest. And then also make sure I'm focusing on things that are most important to them while I have their captive attention. There's plenty of time for them to learn about the other 357 things that are great about your venue. Right now, I want to focus on the things that are most important so I can move that business forward together with them. A couple things to remember also, always ask about the competition. Try to do it as early as you can. What other conference centers are you looking at? What other venues, what other hotels? Who else are you considering? You have to know this in order to be able to sell against it. You have to know this in order to differentiate your own venue from where else they're looking. And you have to know who you're up against so that when they start saying, oh, they're offering a much lower rate, they're doing this, we understand the competition and then are able to articulate for them what the differences are between what they're going to experience there, how the meeting experience might be there versus what the meeting experience is going to be at your venue or hotel. Also, you need to make sure you're asking about decision making, and not just when you're going to make a decision, but who is involved in decision making and what are you going to base your final decision on. It's very important that we're asking who else is involved in decision making. Don't discount the person on the phone. So say, in addition to you, who else is involved, so that you can see if there's other higher level execs, if there's a committee involved. It's going to be important for you to know who those other influencers are so that when you are preparing a proposal or having people come to our site, you understand what all those needs might be, all the different hot buttons that all the people that are involved in decision beyond just the contact person that you've been dealing with. If, of course, they say price, which is what we're going to hear a lot, what are you going to base your final decision on? Price. Right, I understand that. Be empathetic. I understand, certainly, in addition to a competitive price, what else will you base your decision on? Because there's always something else. Like, we've all bought stuff that was a little out of our budget. At least I have. Maybe I'm the only one. And so why do we? Because we want it. Because we saw the value in it. Because we really liked it. And so there's always going to be something people are willing to spend more money on. If the experience is going to be better, if the product is going to be better, if the support's going to be better, if the food's going to be better, all those things. We have to know, great, in addition to price, what else do we base your decision on? And then you're going to hear service and support or experience, ambiance. And then we can sell those things that are going to create value in the rate that we're offering, particularly if we are coming in higher rated than the other competitors that they are looking at. So that knowledge that we're getting during this probing process is creating confidence. We have to know the gap. We have to know their issues, what's going to base their decision on, what are their special needs, what's going to create success. All of that knowledge creates confidence for us going into our pitch, going into our proposal, going into a potential site visit, gives us confidence even when the objections roll around a little bit later in the process, because we have a better understanding of their overall picture and what they value. When we know that, we're going to be far better able to overcome objections and, of course, eventually close the business. So have confidence in what you can do, but get better, like practice, like really think about what do I need to do to get better at asking better questions so that I know my customer more, I know their attitude toward me and to my venue, so I understand where I'm positioned based on who else they're looking with, The better I'm positioned, the better, or the more I know, the better position I'm going to be with the customer. The more knowledge I have, the more successful I'm going to be at closing. So let's just talk a little bit though. First of all, any questions before we get into RFPs quickly when we wrap up here? Any questions about probing, any challenges? I didn't see any challenges come through, so I'm assuming this is hitting the mark for you as far as what you're looking for. But if you have any questions, be sure to put them in the chat. And then when we wrap up, I'll make sure that we get to those. But RFPs, let's talk about that because this is a huge part of our world right now. CVent and the RFP process and everything being electronic. We have to respect our customers' desire to have electronic response. We know from meeting planners, obviously it's really nice to have that CVent come through or to have the reports come through and they can compare side by side exactly what's offering. But it's very hard to differentiate ourselves when we're side by side in those offerings. And so don't just let the electronic element of this keep you from doing what we know we need to do, which is to find out more about their needs. Because the more we find out about their needs, the better we're going to be able to set ourselves up for that side-by-side comparison. So always, always, always ask if you can have a phone appointment. They can say no, but what's the worst that's going to happen? They're going to say no. But lots of times they're going to say yes. And you're going to really set yourself apart by being the one who asked for the phone appointment. Because I, again, genuinely believe that those planners want to be successful. They want to partner with somebody who wants to find out the details, who wants to come alongside them, who wants to be successful too. And so email quickly back saying, I'd love to have a quick phone appointment just to discuss specifically what you, your client, your end users are looking for. Do you have 10 minutes tomorrow for us to chat quickly? Most people will say yes. If they don't, then see if you can send a couple of questions even by email. All right, if you don't mind, could I just have you, I have a couple of questions if you don't mind answering so I can get a better understanding of what you're looking for. So putting yourself in the best position to be successful, again, they can say no. And if they say no, then they say no. It is what it is. And maybe sometimes that's not even business that we want. You know, do we really want somebody that isn't going to be the one who's going to come alongside and really be a partner with us? And we know, of course, that oftentimes they're getting 10 bids because they have to get 10 bids. And we're never going to be the first choice anyway. So it's okay. Let it go. Do what you can. Do the best that you can. Respond quickly. Fill out everything. Always fill out everything. So even if you don't have a golf course, you put the nearest golf course to you, or you don't have a helicopter pad, you put the nearest place where they can land their helicopter. You fill everything out so that side by side, you don't have any blanks. That's important. So if we can't get that call, we can't get that, just do your best to fill out as much as you can, as clearly as you can, and articulate the benefit of why they would choose you as much as you can based on the limited information that you do have. And then always follow up with a phone call. But I have some statistics, and again, we do a lot of statistics, but 80% of planners say, yeah, call me. I want to talk to you. I want to have a good partnership. I want to have a good relationship. I want to work with somebody who wants to work with me. In fact, this just came from focus groups we just did. If we only receive a response to an RFP and maybe a follow-up email when a decision is going to be made. So I fill out the RFP, I send it, no call, no question, no email. But then I follow up a day later and say, when are you going to make a decision? They're like, don't waste your time. Don't even waste your time. If a salesperson does not want to further engage, it does not show an interest in being a partner. So this is how we set ourselves apart. The people who don't want to take the time, that's fine. It's probably not going to be a good fit business for us anyway. But those who are dedicated, those who are genuinely interested in our venue, genuinely interested in bringing their business with us, I think 80% of the time, as statistics say, they are going to want to talk to you. So put it out there for them to do that. So any particular techniques or ideas that you have of how to reach out to third parties, how to get that response, how to get them to talk to you, how to get them on the phone, any particular advice that anybody has for us and the rest of the people on this about how to do that successfully so that we are getting that opportunity to talk to them. I'll let you put that in the chat if you have anything or come off mute, and I'll keep going so we can leave some time for questions as well at the end. But now, of course, we've gotten to the place where we've gotten to the end of the funnel. We know it's important to them. Maybe we're going to put a proposal together. So maybe on this initial call, this inquiry, we did take a couple minutes to kind of tell them a little bit about our space and our AV support, our technology, and all the things we have. But eventually then we're going to say, well, I'm going to send a proposal to you, or would you like to come and do a site visit? And so there'll be this gap of time. And so before we start putting those things together, and this is our little secret sauce, that I'm going to share with you, what we call the verification process. So at the end of our inquiry call, at the end of our initial sales call, we're going to make a commitment, next steps, whatever, to, I'll follow up with a proposal. In the next 5 minutes, once you hang up, I want you to send an email immediately back to that person, verifying what you just talked about. There's a sense of urgency we have these days. And I mentioned earlier, our success today is responsiveness and personalization. We want to show responsiveness. We want to show engagement. We want to show we got you. So that quick email back to just confirm what we just talked about is going to create a lot of trust. It's going to build a bridge in the conversation you just had. It's showing that you want to partner with the customer, but it's also going to help you verify what you heard to make sure that what you heard was right. You want to take some time to put together a really good proposal. So don't feel rushed. I got to get the proposal out in 5 minutes. That quick verification email back to them is going to bridge that gap. It's going to create that responsiveness. It's also going to give them a lot of assurance that you heard them, that you understood them, that you know it's important to them because you verified back with that email. So very quick, couple bullets. Thanks for attempting to talk today. Here's the things that you shared that were important to you, and I just bullet it down. I bullet down the explicit needs, like you need 350 rooms, you need meeting space on 3 days, a general session here, breakouts here. But you also were looking for AV support. You were also looking for great service. You have some high-profile attendees coming. The guest experience is really important to you. You just bullet down the things you heard from them and say if I've missed anything or if there's anything else that you want to add, please reply back to this, or I'm happy to jump on another call quick to make sure, and then tell them the next steps. The next step will be, I'm going to put a proposal together as we discussed. I will have it to you by such and such a date and time. But in the meantime, this verification email has sort of bridged the communication. So you're going to stand out. You're going to stand out being responsive. You're going to stand out by verifying their needs. You're going to stand out by saying, I'm genuinely interested in this business, and I'm giving you a chance to make sure that I have everything right before I put that proposal together. So that is our little secret sauce, a little added bonus to this probing and qualifying process that we know really creates a lot of success in what we are doing. All right, so to review, and I'm going to go back to a couple of people who did chime in some things about how to get the third parties on the phone. We want to ask the right questions to qualify the business, to uncover their needs, to build relationship, to build rapport, to show our expertise, to be credible, to show that we know what we're doing, that we're a consultant, that we're not just here to take their order, but we're generally interested in what's important to them. And we show that by how we listen, how we take notes, how we use their words, how we repeat things back to them. All those things are important. And that we also do that in that RFP process. So a couple ideas here. Sarah said, I always ask for a phone call in Cvent. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Now third parties reach out directly outside of Cvent as well. And so that's good. You built that relationship with them. And so, yes, maybe they have to go through Cvent, but maybe they're also now reaching out to you directly. When that's happening, you know that you've created a partnership. You know that you've created that relationship and that they really value the conversation they're going to have with you. JJ says, wine and dine, invite for meals on site. If they are local, you have anything to get them to want to engage with you. But just always ask. And if they have marked on Cvent, please call me, then absolutely do. Because I can tell you how many shops we do, and we always mark phone because that's the whole part. We're supposed to see if they want to pick up the phone. We're hoping they're going to pick up the phone. We want to prefer phone call to email, and we just get an email back anyway. So if they've actually marked, I want to talk to you, then you absolutely need to pick up the phone and talk to them. And then, of course, I shared the verifying the needs before proceeding as a way to create that connection with them. So it's all about being confident, expressing confidence, being assertive, but coming with empathy. And when you come with empathy, it doesn't come across as aggressive. It comes across as interesting. So it's our ability to pull our prospects through the sales process, not push. And I like to use the analogy of a string. Like if I have a string laid out on my desk here, right? The string right here. If I wanted to move that string, if I came from behind the string and I pushed it, what's going to happen? The string is going to bunch up. It's not going to go anywhere. It's going to stay where it is, and it's all going to be a big mess now too. But if I take the other end of the string and I gently pull it, I can take that string wherever I want. I can pull the string all the way around across the room if I want to. So that's what we're doing. We're gently pulling them through the process in a very organic, authentic, genuine way by asking thought-provoking, interesting questions that are getting our clients to talk, open up so we can identify their needs, identify the criteria for business that is going to allow us to differentiate our venue from the competition. Because in the end, that's what we need to do. We need to be able to then go back in our presentations and our pitches and our proposals and our site visits and link what we have to what they want. If we don't know what they want, then we're going to be throwing out a generic proposal that we go back to that feedback to the planners at the beginning, doesn't really tell them anything about what you can do for them. So we want to make those presentations have high impact. We want to have dynamic proposals. We want to have wow site visits. And we do so by uncovering those needs. And also by doing it ahead of time, it saves a lot of time. There's no back and forth. I mean, how many times do you go back and forth with clients like, oh, now this comes up. Oh, now this comes up. Oh, I forgot about this. If we do a better job of asking those questions up front, we have a tendency to save that time because we know what those things are. We know what those hot buttons are. We know what's come up and we know how to resolve them. All right. So any final questions? JJ has added here, or JJ's team, finally reaching out to try and secure a call before the proposal expires, letting the client know we are flexible and willing to revisit any area of the offer that they wish to discuss further. That's a very good approach too. Always making sure that once you've sent that response through the RFP or through CVent or through the proposal to them, that you always follow up. Always follow up and create that engagement. We're always trying to secure that next opportunity to talk to them so that we don't get ghosted and we don't lose that opportunity to explain, to discuss things further, to make sure that it's clear what we're offering, and to really flush out any objections. We want to hear the objections. We want to hear their hesitations, because if we don't hear them, we won't ever know how we're going to capture the business. So any other questions before we wrap up our time together today? No? Well, as always, it's been a delight. Look forward to you. Oh, I did have a slide. Actually, I'm so sorry, Kate. I was going to show the slide for the upcoming webinars. You know, Mark is doing one at the first part of December with the 2023 results of visioning the meeting room of the future. That's always a great session to hear what the trends are in events and meetings. So you want to tune into that one. And then I'll be back December 14th to talk about how to close the sale. But you may want to fill the gaps in the middle. We talked about probing today. Go back to May and watch the presentation webinar that'll set you up then for how to close the sale. So we got to do the pitch first, and then we close the sale. So thank you so much. Kate, any final words from you?
No, big thanks from Kim. Thank you everyone for joining. Hope you found it useful. And yeah, as Kim said, do check out our future webinars. We've got 2 left this year, so get signed up for those. And I will, as I promised, send out the recording to you all tomorrow from this session. You know, thanks again, Kim, and happy Thanksgiving to all our American friends.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. All right.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
We had one question in the chat. If we could steal you real quick, Kim. We have some challenges with Smurf nonprofits, social, being responsive, and overall the content that you've given us, we're pretty sure if we followed all those steps and gave different things a try, that we'd probably navigate that better. But just trying to see if you have any like current standing, where we're at, trying to close on stuff, any feedback.
What's the biggest roadblock? Where are you finding, are this not responsive at all? Is it after the proposal? What's the gap that you're finding?
Go ahead, Alexis.
After the proposal, nothing. Through phone calls or emails.
Okay. And in your proposal, are you ending with some sort of call to action, like, I would love to set up a call with you on this day? Are you available to meet, chat, talk?
Yes.
You are. So, and a specific date, specific time?
Not always specific date or time, but obviously implied.
Yeah.
As far as prompting for a follow-up and feedback at a minimum.
Yeah, sometimes asking for a specific date is helpful because it just makes it easier for them to check and go, oh yeah, I'm available Tuesday at 10, I'll do that. Even if you didn't say 10, you said, and you are available next Tuesday, I'd love to set up a quick call, 10 minutes to review any questions that you have. Oftentimes, have you talked to them at all before this? Like, did you have an initial call and then put the proposal together and then it's radio silence?
Well, a lot of the times the radio silence comes with CVent planners.
Okay. Yeah. And that's going to happen for sure. Are there any ways for you to get the contact information from them and reach out to them and call them? Are you calling them to follow up?
Yeah, they almost always put their phone number as well as their email within the CVAP proposal.
So I think it's just thinking of creative ways to follow up and not to be annoying. Because we have all of those emails that are annoying, like, oh, I reached out to you again, just wondering if you got my message, you see my email. Like, try to put some selling elements back into that follow-up to say, just want to reach back out to you in the proposal I gave, and highlight like one thing, in the proposal, highlight one benefit you think you can do for them, and try to do something different each time, because maybe perhaps they haven't even looked at the proposal yet, they haven't had time, maybe things got postponed, or maybe it didn't catch their attention enough the first time, but being able to share those little nuggets will help you to get their attention as you go. So very short, simple emails, like 3 paragraphs at the most, couple sentences each, something that's going to get their attention at the beginning, but then highlight something. I just wanted to highlight from the proposal, you mentioned that this was important and this is what we can do. Just to see if it's just generating a little bit more interest just because they haven't even dug in to the proposal in the first place.
I always reattach the proposal to the email, assuming that they aren't going to want to dig for it.
Yeah. And sometimes that's going to what could be happening is it's going into spam, it's going into junk. So what we're seeing a lot with emails is anything with attachments, anything with URLs, anything with links, and that is oftentimes getting spammed out. So maybe try not attaching it and then just highlighting something of it. And then hopefully it spurs them enough to give you a call. And then you can resend it again or get on a phone call and talk about the proposal that way as well. So just some thoughts. I mean, it's just diligence. It's just trying to be creative. It's just trying to stand out a little bit. And so just thinking of how you're repositioning those emails with each follow-up that seem genuine, that seem new, that you have a new thing to say each time. You're not just following up on the proposal, getting your call, calling, maybe if you have a phone number, calling and pressing 0 and asking an assistant, like, hey, do you know when they're going to be back in the office? Do you know when the best time to reach them is? Seeing if you can target good times like that. It's just staying diligent and creative to kind of get their attention. It's kind of the best advice I can give.
Thank you.
Welcome. Have a great day. Thanks for your participation today, JJ and team.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Kristen or Christine?